This is the June 30th, 2026 meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board of the Town of Southampton. Present are members Susan Sherry Clark, William Hine, Vicki Cohn, Tim Ganettis, Jack Jones, Samantha Malone, and myself, Stephanie Davis. This meeting is being conducted under town and New York State law that provides for in-person and remote participation. Individuals may undertake remote participation by going to the link on the Landmarks Board agenda or by going to the meeting portal of the Southampton Town Clerk on the town website. Viewer-only observation is found by activating the live link at the top of the Town Clerk's meeting portal page. Online participation is being moderated by CTV and tonight by Peter. To comment on a particular agenda item, please notify CTV via the chat function so that comments may be made. Commentators will need to provide their name, their agency if relevant, and a place of business or residence. The first item on the agenda tonight is the meeting minutes from our May 19, 2026 meeting. David reminded me that Jeff Gibbons was not present at this meeting because he had previously resigned from the board. I thought I had scrubbed all of the references to Jeff out of the minutes that were circulated, but there were 2 additional references to Jeff which will be removed from the minutes before they are approved. Did anybody have any other comments on the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, can I have a motion that they be approved with the revisions made to remove Jeff? Vicki moved, second. Okay, Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, minutes are carried forward. I believe tonight we have Connor with us from the Bridgehampton Museum. And that particular matter is under the Certificate of Appropriateness discussions. Let's see. So, bring that up here. And let's see. Bridgehampton Museum. Okay. Okay, this is for ongoing exhibits of outdoor sculptures. And Connor, can I invite you to come up to the front here and give us a little introduction discussion of what's proposed here? I'll put up the map on the screen here.
I sit here for the mic for...
Yes, please sit there for the mic. And I know at least 1, if not 2 of our members have some questions for you. Okay, that's a picture of the sculpture. The 2 sculpture areas are the areas outlined in yellow. So, Connor, if you'd like to just give us a discussion about what's proposed here.
Sure. Yeah, so at the Bridgehampton Museum, specifically at the Nathaniel Rogers House, the Rogers House was the historic home of Nathaniel Rogers, who is a miniature portrait artist who came to fame in New York City, but was born and raised in Bridgehampton and eventually moved back home after making his money working in New York City. The CPF bought the property in, I believe, 2003. It was a lengthy project to restore the building. And now that we have it open and operating with new exhibitions and programs, one of those being outdoor sculpture exhibitions, primarily highlighting local artists and showcasing sculpture for the community. We had a piece that was out for the last year or so. And before we did that, I had called to sort of see what needed to be done in ways of that. And what I was told was that because it was a temporary art installation, that no muss, no fuss, and we'd be able to have that. So we had a piece out there for about the last year or so. And then when we had the new Chamberlain piece installed was when the question came up about potentially needing the COA for this. So that's when I put together the information to supply you all with everything. The main part, if you notice on the imagery, is to not block the main sort of facade of the house, the front area. Now, we're not having any sculptures that are big enough to really block the house by any means, but we don't want to block the main sort of vista that people see it when they're coming down Montauk Highway or the Sag Bridge Turnpike, which is really the main spot that you see the house. So the sculpture areas are, as we see, designated in the yellow. Primarily the front area and a little bit in the back of the house. Really on the side, not much of anything, but potential use. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
That, the sculpture out there is particularly impressive looking right now, especially that big green one that's on the, up, I guess, to the left of the doorway.
Yeah, the east side. Yeah, that's a piece by John Chamberlain, who lived on Shelter Island. His estate is currently there, managed by his daughter Alexandra. He's primarily known for his crushed cars, but
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, but what we have is one of his foil pieces, which primarily are shown in Europe. But they just recently had a show of them at Rockefeller Center. And we became friendly with the family recently and asked if that would be a potential, and they were happy to lend it to us.
Yeah, fun. That and the, what looks like corn cobs on the one on on the side.
Yeah.
That's fun, so,
Yeah, Oscar Molina, another local resident. Yeah.
yep.
Connor, could you speak to the issue of lighting? What kind of lighting do you allow or do you envision for these sculptures?
So we don't have any lighting plans really for any of these sculptures. What we have are, if anybody wants to do any sort of permanent installation of lighting, it would have to obviously be approved with dark skies in mind for all of that. Otherwise, there's like the very, very basic pathway lighting that we have, so nobody trips or hits anything. That are little solar ones that are very low wattage. But otherwise, we don't plan to have any light installation, and if anything were to go installed, it would have to go through all those things, which I really don't want to do because sculptures move all the time, and we're not going to have one static place where if we put a lot of effort into putting in lighting, we would just have to move it in 6 months when we did the next project. So there is really no intentional goal to install lighting for the outdoor sculptures.
So if we issued a COA that did not include lighting, would that be acceptable?
Yes, yeah, that would be acceptable. We wouldn't need lighting because, like I said, we would be potentially moving these sculptures throughout that whole designated area. Primarily where the Chamberlain is now is where something will go, but it might move within a 5 to 10 foot radius, which will not work with whatever lighting we wanted to install permanently. So all the artists have to be aware that we really can't do that other than, like I said, basic solar uplights that might be able to help just with people walking into things, but that's really all we can do.
And would there ever be artwork that was internally lit? Had its own source of lighting within the design?
I'm sure that would be something that might get proposed to us, but again, I believe that would have to be approved by Dark Skies. I don't think that would be anything that we would be able to just do. And so if we were to get this COA and if you were to approve it with lighting, I think it would be hard to anticipate what an artist might come to me with. So I think if there was going to be any sort of light installed on one of these, we would want to come back with a specialty ask for said piece of art with clear timelines of when it would be working, if we could turn lights off at certain times, and all those questions that I'm sure would come up.
And do you have sort of a kind of a time when you normally shut off the lighting?
Yeah, well, so right now we haven't had lighting outside on any of the sculptures. Like the corn cob looking ones, Oscar Molinas, don't have lights on them. We don't have any outdoor lighting that's been installed. So all those are able to just be where they are. And so if we had something that were to be given that, I think the Dark Sky says it has to be by midnight or 11 or something would be when lights would have to be turned off. So, yeah.
I had a quick question, you said, wasn't there some type of COA that the Academy applied for? Oh, thank you. In Remsenburg. A number 4 or 5 years ago, you were gonna have an art installation.
Yeah, there was a COA that was issued for the Academy, and I think it may have included a temporary art installation on the lawn there. It included a number of other things, though, too, including the landmark plaque and lighting and that sort of thing. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking precedent that we continue to, of course, you they needed to apply for one, so that's, I just want,
The academy is a little bit different because the academy doesn't have like rotating outdoor
Right.
sculptures. This is a little different because
it's gonna,
we have the Bridgehampton Museum, as I understand it, has ongoing sculpture exhibits that change over time, but it sounds like there more or less is always something on the lawn, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yeah, ideally. So the John Chamberlain is supposed to be out for this year and go away into storage at the end, around the end of October, and come back out on view next year from again May to October. The Oscar Molinas, I believe, will be leaving either at the end of September or early October. And as we go through the season between now and the end of October, I think we're supposed to have another 4, I believe, exhibitions inside. And some of those artists, when they come to do the installs, they might have something small they want to do outside. And so the original conversation I had with Stephanie about this was, if we were to need to get a COA each time, it might be difficult if we wanted to do smaller installations on the property, and I wouldn't want to bother everybody necessarily every time we wanted to do a small sculpture in the parking lot area that you really only see when you're parking your car, walking inside. So that's why the idea of this being a blanket one that we could figure out would really work out best. And I believe in the application we talked about, all the sculptures would be static. For instance, if there would be anything that's like moving, that would need some sort of special ask and a different designation in terms of placement. Obviously, being right on Montauk Highway, you wouldn't want to have anything that's causing a distraction for the roadways or anything. So this would just be for very static installations.
And do you have guidelines in place for what you would consider appropriate or inappropriate?
Yeah, so we have an exhibitions committee that meets monthly to talk about all the exhibitions that we have going on, primarily featuring art centered on artists from the East End. We're really not too interested in showcasing things that are not from this area. There's plenty of other galleries and places around people can do that. If we're managing a town site with the Rogers House, we want to focus on the East End. And the general guidelines include nothing that would be offensive or untoward or anything like that. And just really probably focusing on like abstract expressionist sculptural pieces that just make sort of nice candy for the side of the building.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. So I drafted up a resolution that hopefully we can pass tonight. I'll try to read it quickly here. And it will be modified to indicate that it excludes anything involving lights. So, whereas Mr. Connor Flanagan is agent for the Bridgehampton Museum, located at 2539 Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton, submitted an application for a certificate of appropriateness dated June 3rd, 2026 for ongoing outdoor sculpture exhibits on the grounds of the museum. And whereas the Nathaniel Rogers House, now operated as the Bridgehampton Museum, has been designated as the Town of Southampton landmark and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And whereas the town's Landmarks and Historic Districts Board issued COAs in 2022 and 2023 for restoration work, fencing, landscaping, and signs at the Nathaniel Rogers House in support of its use for public assembly, exhibition, education, demonstration, historic archives, and museum display. And whereas pursuant to town code, a review of a COA by the Landmarks Board shall consider changes to exterior appearances that are visible from a public right-of-way. And whereas the aforementioned COA application includes a narrative, copy attached, describing the purpose of the outdoor sculpture exhibits and outlining the museum's rules for outdoor sculptures. These rules include prohibiting sculptures that can be construed as offensive or overly provocative, prohibiting sculptures with lights or movement that would impede or distract drivers on Montauk Highway, and restricting sculpture placement such that the main view of the Nathaniel Rogers House from Montauk Highway is not blocked. And whereas the COA application includes a map, copy attached, that specifies areas where sculptures are allowed, sculptures are prohibited outside the marked areas. And whereas the Bridgehampton Museum understands that if other outdoor exhibits are contemplated that do not conform to the restrictions noted in the attached narrative and map, that another COA must be obtained from the Landmarks Board for these exhibits prior to their installation. And whereas the Landmarks Board finds that outdoor sculpture exhibits, subject to the limitations in the narrative and map, are anticipated to facilitate the mission of the museum and are in accordance with the established uses of the Nathaniel Rogers House, now therefore be it resolved that the Landmarks Board approves of ongoing outdoor sculpture exhibits subject to the limitations and described in the attached narrative and map, and be it further resolved that the Landmarks Board requires any future outdoor exhibit that does not conform to the limitations described in the narrative and map to be subject to a separate subsequent review for COA prior to installation, and be it further resolved that the Landmarks Board Chair is authorized to issue a COA for ongoing outdoor sculpture exhibits as described, subject to the noted limitations, and to forward the COA and this resolution to the town of Southampton via the CPF fund manager and the town clerk pursuant to Town Code Section 330-324E. That is the text of the resolution. Any recommended changes to this text at this point? Yes? Absolutely, absolutely, Ed. Would you like to come up to the...
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ed Wisnowski from Bridgehampton. Just for a little context, there's another museum in Bridgehampton, the Dia Art Museum, which at the construction of the historic district was interested in whether or not it could provide outdoor exhibits. And at that time, in the back and forth I had with them, I said it probably would be on a case-by-case basis, given that it was a museum of neon lighting. It would represent potentially a problem for an outdoor exhibit that might have tough sledding, but I said that's the way it would be. And then they raised no objection subsequently to the historic district. Also last summer, there was a pop-up sculpture gallery on Main Street in Bridgehampton. It had two life-size figures positioned right out on the sidewalk, almost interfering with pedestrian access. One figure was a Harlequin-style fat clown kind of semi-flying through the air on a pedestal stand, 6 foot in length. And the other one was a normal life-size sculpture of a man, again, 6 foot high, with his legs on the ground compared to the Harlequin, which was semi-flying in its display. Bridgehampton has a lot of, quote, art culture in it, and galleries galore. So the problem of displays and exhibitions, so to speak, can be problematic. There's also other nonprofit institutions which erect temporary structures visible on Montauk Highway. In particular, one is the Catholic Church, which seasonally puts up a wooden stable at Christmas season for their purposes of advertising or appealing to interested people. And also the Episcopal Church erects outdoor summer tents that it uses for sometimes worship services and other activity which may be revenue providing for them. So there's a whole bunch of kind of other things that show up on Main Street that are associated with the appropriateness. I'd point out that as a National Register, the Nathaniel Rogers House is subject to, as well as all the landmarks, to the standards of the Secretary of Interior with respect to the historic character. And I think one of the questions that that's been raised to me, I received a lot of feedback about that sculpture, was whether it was consistent with the quaint historical character, given its size and given the material that was used in this particular sculpture. Others may, of course, be different in scale and different in materials. And one of the things that's required basically is to evaluate a certificate of appropriateness with respect to what it does for both the National Register place as well as a historic district. And in town code, the COA is also subject to the discretionary option of the Landmarks Board to have a public hearing on it. And there certainly has been a lot of interest in both the Rogers House and the particular sculpture at the moment over a period of time, and I think that a lot of people would be concerned about it. So that's my wisdom I offer you from my past experience on this, and leave it to you to make your decisions. I don't know if you have questions. I'll be glad to ask or respond to any that are asked.
Thank you, Ed.
Actually, I have a question for you with respect to Ed's comments. The impetus for adding these ongoing exhibits of contemporary art, and you were particularly interested in abstract expressionism. What was that? What was the initial thought on behalf of the committee that was assigned to do this? Was it to bring in more folks to visit the museum, hoping that this would be an attraction, or? And I'm trying to relate this to Ed's comments, because it's. I mean, I have no objection to. I love all art, but I don't know the connection either.
Yeah, so the impetus for any exhibition, right, is to bring in more visitors and guests to the museum in different ways, whether they're inside or outside. With respect to the Nathaniel Rogers House, it's named after Nathaniel Rogers, who was a local artist, and so in trying to keep his person in mind when curating the exhibitions in the museum, we want to give a heavy focus on the arts. The interior of the house, I don't know if anybody here has been to the house before and seen the inside. It is not a true restoration to any exact time period that we could put our finger on. If you went through the house, certain areas feel like 1850, other spots feel like 1910. So it's really not a historic house restoration from the interior standpoint, which is why the museum made the decision to go for doing more contemporary exhibitions rather than a historic home exhibition. And so in respect to that, as we were developing our exhibition schedule, keeping the spirit of the Hamptons arts and cultural history alive, there is a lot of abstract expressionist artists in this area, and especially a lot from the time period of John Chamberlain that would work out really well in the space. Last year we had a piece by Joel Perlman, who's a living working artist in the Bridgehampton area. So we had his piece out front for the entirety of 2025. And then now moving on to a different artist that has a bit of a higher profile, and hoping that we could do different sculptures like that.
So I think what you're saying is that much like the house itself, Nathaniel Rogers' house, it evolved in use. It had multiple uses over its entire history, always evolving with the times, and then this is just an expression of the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Connor, I have a question. Have you received any negative feedback about the nature of the sculptures on the lawn, whether this exhibition or prior exhibitions?
No. We've only gotten really great resounding feedback that people have really enjoyed it. This is the first I've heard that anybody has a distinct problem or anything. Nobody's come to me directly to say that there's an issue with any of the sculptures or things like that. We had a small sculpture show on the grounds last year. I think the biggest sculpture is about half the size of me, that some people didn't like. But those were very small ones by some local artists. But of the larger ones that are substantial, you could see people have really just enjoyed them. Been able to see people from my office coming onto the grounds and taking pictures with it and enjoying it. So as far as I know, people just seem to enjoy.
I just wanted to thank you, Ed, for your comments, because you raised a good point about the other places in the village, you know, like on the main strip, and there are some pieces there that actually really do bother me and I think are inappropriate on the sidewalks. I don't have a problem with the placement and the spacing around the Nathaniel Rogers house, but my concern is, how do we differentiate giving this like kind of certificate of appropriateness and without having to have them come back and then not have one of the art places on, you know, I don't remember the names of them, but there's one near the deli that has like this hippopotamus thing, right? And I always think about that sculpture. I'm like, how is this allowed to be in the middle of the sidewalk? You know, I don't think, for me, that's not like an appropriate spot for something. So yeah, my concern would just be, how do we differentiate, or how do I differentiate this property versus something that is right on the main sidewalk where there's really not any space, and maybe something small would be appropriate, but it should be more on a case-by-case basis.
Well, I think with our site being all fenced in, we're on a CPF park property, so there's no public access right of way or anything that these could be in the way of. The hippopotamus is something. I remember the Harlequin things from last year and thought the same thing to myself of, wow, there must not be issues with doing things in Bridgehampton because this is all just allowed to be here. And so I think the easy way for myself to differentiate that is just simply on the sidewalk. It maybe is either not allowed or needs to be a case-by-case basis, where if one of the galleries or somebody there wanted to do something to make sure to get that allowed. But something like us and Dia, as long as it's not a neon sculpture, because that would get into the dark skies conversation. If it's within the bounds of somebody's either private property or public property and not in the way of roads or walkways, I wouldn't necessarily see too much of an issue. But I do agree having something on sidewalks does pose a lot of issues.
And there's a church right down the street that has an X and an O and some figures that are neon lit and been there for a while. Did they seek permission? Not from us.
No, they're in their village. They're in the village.
Oh, okay. All right. And then what with somewhere like Sag Harbor, the Whaling Museum, do they ever display anything besides the whale boat that's under a roof, or was? But I don't know.
I think on occasion, but I would imagine anything small. I haven't seen anything
Okay, yeah, I never.
recently that's large.
Yeah.
I think, Connor, one thing you mentioned to me when we were discussing about the kinds of sculptures that you accept, I understood that the museum does receive public funding through the school budget process.
Yes.
And that factors into your consideration of which kinds of sculptures you would consider exhibiting publicly.
Not directly. That mostly pays for our educator and other programming things. For instance, the Chamberlain, when it came the proposal to us to showcase that, when we found out the cost in order to do insurance and transportation and things like that, it was outside of the bounds of our budget. So we were going to pass on it until a few people stepped up to foot the bill to pay for it to all happen. So things like that, if it's going to be, somewhat expensive in order to do, we simply just will not do it. But if there's private funders who want to do something like that, then that's a great way we can solve those problems and do something that's more bigger and fun. But no public funds were used for any of the current outdoor exhibitions.
Stephanie, just to add one thing. There is also 2 commercial spaces on Main Street, which have sculptures out in front of them, modern sculptures, which have not been previously mentioned. One is close to the Farrell properties on Main Street. And the other one is close to, or part of a real estate office, which was reviewed for a COA last, I don't know, July or so. The Southampton real estate window COA that was reviewed, that also has a sculpture. The landlord's brother is a sculptor. And so it's kind of a open advertisement for the sculptor. So there is that aspect too. I just wanted to add. The other question is, if it's a serious enough thing, it's possible that perhaps you could consider a temporary COA for the period of time till October or so. And for the board to get the opportunity to kind of have a more open community discussion with a public hearing on either a policy or proposed rules concerning outdoor displays and exhibitions by various institutions within the community that would be interested in it. And that would give some breathing room to evaluate, I think, a sounder policy. The questions, are there to be decided whether or not it disturbs the historic character with not only any modern sculpture, wherever it's to be found in the community, and whether scale and materials has some impact on the way in which it might detract from either the buildings or the historic district as it exists.
You could also get off in whatever statement it was making, if it was some sort of figure that pissed everyone off, that kind of thing. I could see we talked about the hippopotamus that way. So, seemed like a good idea.
Do you have, do you plan the installations by the season? Like, do you know what sculptures are going to be approximately where, a season at a time, a year at a time, or is it just a random?
Primarily, it's about a year in advance. We know what we're doing. There's occasional small things that change when we're doing installations that, they might move a little bit in the general area, or especially when it comes to smaller sculptures that like a person could move by themselves. When we have shows that somebody might show up with something extra that we see if we can fit it somewhere, which has happened once or twice before outside usually near our entry to the building. But any of obviously the larger scale ones, they're usually planned out a year to 6 months in advance.
So, if in January or whatever the year's planning is, you could submit a list of here's what we're going to plan for 2027 approximately. And it could be approved on an annual, possibly due to the October, but then on an annual basis instead of just, and that way there would be a little, if things started to become problematic the following year, they could.
Susan, maybe we could do a blanket COA for things that are movable, that are like interstitial,
Yeah.
and then the larger things that require heavy equipment, et cetera, to move could be done on a year-by-year basis, because those are the things that are much more visible, would be of more concern, and can't be easily moved if someone complains.
To that end, we could predicated on where it falls on this map. If it's
Correct.
visible from Montauk Highway or the side road, that would require a COA for those, and we could do the blanket COA for the ones that are closer to the entrance in the back or on the far side of the parking lot there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the details thereof, but the Walking Legs in Sag Harbor got a lot of press for a year or two, where it was placed, who could, moving it around to find a place for it. And of course, you wouldn't want that type of negative publicity, and if there's a way we could know ahead, then we wouldn't.
Actually, I think it was very good. The art gallery's owner did very, very well, Publicity is always good, whether it's positive or negative. She did very, very well, so that was fine for her. I'm not sure, though, that I'm comfortable as a member of the Landmarks Board being in a position of critiquing what sculpture is appropriate. I don't think that's within our mandate. This is where I have a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
In fact, a big issue, yeah.
Yeah, that was something that was troublesome to me too, looking at the language here and who judges what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. And
I'd hate to see us get off into also trying to pick locations for placement of sculpture. It gets off in a real rat hole doing all this stuff. I mean, they end up not being able to do what you want to do. And, to me, it's not our place to decide where the best location for these pieces are. Obviously, if they're protruding on the sidewalk, that's an issue. But otherwise, it's taken away from the creativity of that sculpture, and I didn't have a problem with that foil piece. I thought, as a matter of fact, I thought it was a nice counterpoint to the big white mansion. And knowing that these are transient and they're not there for all that long. And I thought it was rather refreshing here,
Yeah, to me, I think it works out well how the phrasing is set up now, where it gives the museum the autonomy to curate our space and make those choices that we think are best for the community, while we work with the community a lot on making all of our exhibitions and programs and everything we do. So there's a lot of input from community members about what we want to do. We also have an advisory committee that's made up of non-board members of the Bridgehampton community who come to us, and we tell them all of our plans in advance and try and weigh out if there's any issues or problems to really make sure we avoid any of those, because I've had many a suggestion that has not made it past a suggestion for various reasons. And so I think it would be somewhat easy to delineate between our space and some of these other locations that might be problematic for one reason or another, with a similar COA with different parameters around location and place.
I personally think it's a great idea to continue the story of the history of Bridgehampton. The museum is there, the physical structure is there. As you tour through the interior exhibits, there's always a different dialogue going on about a different element of what's transpired. And I think the artwork is just one more element of what's happening in Bridgehampton.
Thank you.
I'm curious what the board's thinking is about Ed's suggestion that maybe this be a temporary COA until you can hold some sort of a public forum to get input from the community as it relates to all of the other institutions and businesses in the district that might be having outdoor displays.
I like that idea. I think, there is a lot going on. I appreciate what you're doing, and I think that it is great. And, I'd like for you to be able to go forward with it, but it is a bigger discussion, and that's what concerns me about the other spaces.
So what I'm hearing at this point is that we could issue this COA, but it would just be for 2026, the 2026 exhibit, and that we would then at some point here hold a public hearing to get public input about the sculpture in general, on Bridgehampton's Main Street. And that would inform, future COAs for this and for potentially other folks who want to exhibit sculpture. Is that generally what I'm hearing from folks? Okay. So I think the language in here would stay the same, with the exception that we would remove the word ongoing and replace it with 2026. So it would cover this year alone. And without going into details, what I'll do, we do need to approve this. We could approve it tonight with that change made and anything else that's needed to accomplish that. So are folks okay with that approach? Okay. So what I will do is, after the meeting, I will circulate a revised version that has that language in it. But can we have a motion now to accept that resolution, to approve that resolution, assuming I make that change to 2026? Okay, Vicki has the motion. Second, Tim, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and any abstains? Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you, Connor.
Thank you.
All right,
Have a good night.
all right. Ed, are you here for any other matter
No.
specifically?
Just to listen.
Okay, because there is a referral concerning Bridgehampton. I didn't know if you might be here for that.
I only had a chance to see the agenda today on the town clerk's
Okay,
portal. I don't think anybody else saw it prior to today.
okay. In which case, I'm thinking it might be expedient to move to that referral since we have the Bridgehampton expert here. 732 Lumber Lane. All right, let's see, where is the... oh, okay, so this is a subdivision pre-application. Try to pull up. There we go. This is a subdivision application for 732 Lumber Lane. What's proposed is a 3-lot subdivision. There exists here a potato barn, which is listed as, or identified as a historic resource BH-05. Supposedly dates to the second quarter of the 20th century, so somewhere between 1925 and 1950, right on the road. And then there is a 2-story house here. There is a 1-story house here and a 2-story house here. What is proposed is a 3-lot subdivision. Lot number 1 here. What's described is they propose to retain the 2-story house. It's not clear which 2-story house they propose to retain. And I think that's one of the comments I want made back to the planning board. I don't have the AYB information on these houses, but I do have a picture of the one that's closest to the road. It's a classic vernacular farmhouse. The other 2-story house is right back here. And then I also have a picture of the potato barn. Looks like this is actually seems to be in active use for some sort of storage or whatever. This is the
Landscape business.
It's a landscape business, okay. This is a 1-story house back here. What's proposed in the plan here is to run the flag lot access right through the middle of this 1-story house. So this would be demolished. They propose to retain and renovate the 2-story house, but they're not clear as to which of the 2-story houses is planned. And they also plan to retain and renovate the barn. That's the proposal. Ed, do you have any specific knowledge about this property?
Yeah, it used to be farmland, obviously, and potato farms, because the potato barn is there, facing Lumber Lane. Across the street is the Comfort Farm.
Actually, would you mind, sorry.
I used to do the scolding. Across the street is the Comfort Farm, which is a very old Halsey house, Matthew Halsey, 1700, still retains a lot of integrity. Next to this property is another old house which we reviewed and belongs to a former member of the board here,
Oh, okay.
Martha Green.
Okay.
All the houses in this neighborhood were descendants of Halsey's, and the houses on this side, including Martha Green's and the two-story house close to Lumber Lane that you mentioned on that property, they were built in middle 1800s
Okay.
and have been remodeled and changed over the years. I often thought that the property would be sold and there'd be knockdowns,
Yeah.
which would be unfortunate, I think. In a sense, it kind of is a context for a local historic district of about 5 houses that all have very significant connection to each other in the history of Bridgehampton in terms of the particular family that occupied this area. And of course, just down the road is another open farm field that was once part of the whole complex on Lumber Lane of farming.
Yeah.
And that was, recently up for discussion for equestrian operation.
Right.
But this, the houses, if they can be preserved and even landmarked with appropriate historical documentation, might be a suggestion you could make to the planning board that it be part of the consideration for the subdivision.
Yes. Yeah, there's certainly the barn, it's already recognized as a historic resource. I don't know why this house wasn't, but I think it certainly would be something that would be, probably landmarkable given that history, and given at least visually what I could see from the Google Street View. I couldn't see from Google Street View what either of these other two structures look like. I guess since this is a one-story, it's probably something more recent, but I may lean on you, Bill, for some AYBs on this property.
I will say also that in the surrounding properties, there have been many new homes, McMansion size,
Yes.
that have been constructed, and there are some new ones even to the north, towards the top of the map, that are now under construction as well.
Yeah.
So this little cluster is actually, a remnant of the 19th century kind of farming and farmhouse structures for Bridgehampton.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I should also add the Dr. Skeist project is
Yes.
immediately behind that lot furthest to the left. And as a matter of fact, that family, I think, tried to buy that section that sticks out there. And the owner didn't want to sell part of it. He wanted to sell the whole thing. And so that's immediately in this case, to the left. And there's one Halsey house that was moved that caused a bit of a stir it was 2 or 3 years. Well, we've worked on it for about 9 years. And now there's a total of 5 relocated historic structures that are back right up to that land.
In a Sky's property,
Yeah.
yes. You saw the Skies property, yeah.
And he has two more structures. I don't know what they're gonna do, whether they'll restore them and move them in there. They're up in Vermont right now. There's a barn, and it's the Antiquities House from East Quogue. It's in East, was in East Quogue, I think.
Quogue.
Or Quogue.
Yeah.
And that was, we took that house, it had been left in a tractor trailer, and they didn't want to pay the rent on it anymore. And Skice bought that and a separate barn, and the barn's been restored and is erected up in Vermont. And the Antiquities House is taken all apart and parked inside the barn. So I hopefully I talk them into doing something with it, but it's, both those structures are just mothballed right now.
Stephanie, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
does that show an existing, I can't see it sharp enough, is that showing a road, an existing road going straight back?
This is the proposed flag lot. So
Oh,
this
okay,
is
and that
proposed.
driveway is not there now, okay, yeah.
Correct. These little dotted ones are the existing driveways.
Yeah, the driveway I was used to is further up to the right.
Okay.
It's an existing dirt driveway, It goes by that barn.
This one here?
I can't see your mouse.
Oh, we can't, you can't see my mouse?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Oh, jeez.
there's the mouse.
I can't see it at all.
Sorry. Now, this is the flag lot right here, running right through the middle, and obviously this, this house is a goner with the flag. But I have a question as to which of these two-story houses they proposed.
It's the front house, Stephanie.
the front
Yeah,
house?
On the plan, it says house to remain.
Oh, okay, it does. All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You have the proposed plan then?
I have that plan right there.
Oh, you have this one?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I just didn't zoom in enough to see it.
But you also have this one with the proposed house.
Oh, and I have the one with the proposed house.
Oh, okay.
Does that one, oh, that doesn't show the proposed house.
No, it does not.
Yeah, if you have the proposed house plan, it's clear which one they're preserving.
Okay, they did not forward the proposed house plan.
Oh,
No, it was only this one,
okay,
part of the thing. So maybe I will snag that from you if it's
sure,
available.
yep.
So basically, I was thinking to respond back to the planning board that, while we don't have a problem with the three-lot subdivision, we certainly want to see this house, preserved as well as the historic barn, and that they be preserved in character with their, existing agricultural heritage. And Bill, if you could give me a clue as to the AYBs of these two, because I don't know how old they are.
That should be on the assessor's property report.
Yeah, in the application?
No, on GIS.
Oh, okay. I don't get into GIS.
Oh, okay.
I do it for her.
Yes. Bill is my way in. He's my worm. Yes, so basically that would be what the response to the planning board will be. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to that response? Okay, very good. Moving onward, I think that's it for Richmond. Go back or regularly scheduled demolition applications. Bill, 29 West End Avenue in East Quogue. This is proposed demolition of a circa 1851 dwelling. I'm sorry.
Another guest here. Oh, I didn't know if you were gonna go with people in there.
Is she here for a specific?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that. But, 217 Rose Hill Road. 217 Rose Hill Road is the next application.
Okay.
So, do you want me to go now or come up?
Come right on up and
So it's nice,
discuss what's proposed here.
Yes.
right on the street, that's good.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Martha Reichert. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Toomey Latham, and I'm here to represent the owner of 217 Rosehill Road. They have made an application here for a demolition permit of the existing residence. Last week, members of the board did a site visit at which I was present, and we answered several different questions. Submitted into the record is an engineering report by Maresca Engineering showing that the current structure is structurally unsound. It has a lot of water damage, damage to the bricks, rust, various different issues, and in accordance with that, we would like to demolish the existing residence. Any further questions?
I don't think we have any at the moment. I think, Susan, you've done a report concerning the history of the property, and I know we've had a number of Landmarks Board members that got a chance to take a look at the property, so I'll
Yeah.
leave it to you, Susan, to discuss.
And we thank you, and we thank the applicant, of course, for allowing us to make the site visit. Vicky, Larry, I, and David went on Friday at 11. Samantha had hoped to make it, but was unable to. And it was seeing the pictures, and the application was well done. There was a lot of documentation, a lot of, photographs, plus the ones that are available online. But there's nothing like, when you see it in person. And, I was not in the basement, and I didn't make it all around the outside because I didn't have socks on, and with the grass and the ticks, I made it partially around. But from what I saw inside, there were a few places I saw some water damage, but I didn't see anything significant. Okay, this is walking into the house, and this is what they called in the 1932 the gallery. But to back it up, I'll start with that. The subject house has an AYB of 1925 as assigned by the tax assessor, and that appeared to be correct because it wasn't on the 1916 map, but it's clearly visible on the 1930 map as being built, but the ground was cleared, and by 1938, the landscaping had all grown in. I couldn't find one particular article that said the family that bought it, but by 1932, when the article was written, it was owned by Richard Oscar Johnson, who lived from 1887 to 1931, and his second wife, Norma Gray Thompson Johnson, who was 1887 to 1939. So since they owned it in 32 and it was built in 35, I'm pretty assured that they are the ones who built it. They seem to have the financial means. They also hired noted architects Frank Goodwillie and William Edgar Moran to design and have it built. And Frank Goodwillie is noted for different commercial, he was with a couple different architectural companies, but commercial and prestigious residential properties. He's also credited, actually in his obituary, for designing the War Memorial, even though locally we hear William Edgar Moran as the designer for that in all the local publicity, because they're refurbishing, collecting money to refurbish it again. But William Edgar Moran did a number of residential homes, but he, of course, I said, did the War Memorial, and he also was the one who redesigned 20 Old Mill Road in Watermill, and we reviewed that, I think it was back in 2015. It is listed in the 2014 Southampton Town Resources Survey, and I had read, of course, it was in the real estate ads, that it was featured in the August 1932 architectural record and was able to find that article. And it's very fascinating to me to have read that article and walk in and see the same features, to see the walnut in the living room, to see the billiard room with the kitchenette next to it, to see the mahogany going up the staircase. There are just so many of the original features are still intact. So that's, for the introduction. As you go on, the other thing is interesting to note, it is on 5.4 acres. So it's a narrow house that spreads out from north to south, but it's not an overwhelming in size type house because I think of the narrow, depth. But it's located on 5.4 acres, and it was on ground that belonged to the Rose family. Originally, Rosemary Lodge was up at the corner, and it was later moved a little farther south on Rose Hill Road. And the Rosemary Lodge is on the National Register. It's on the 1858, the 1873 maps, it's just vacant land. And eventually by 1894, it's owned by the Mecox Land Improvement Company. They purchased 120 acres on each side of Rose Hill. And they developed the Mecock Inn, and in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was quite the social scene with people going to the Mecox Inn, sailing, and then lots of, many articles having researched other properties in that area, parties in the area. In fact, I think a number of us went to the one at 111 Rose Hill, the Steers property, which is right to would be the north of that. There was a house that predates this one, but was not the same quality. But anyways, the Mecock Lands Improvement sold some in the names are on the maps. 4 or 5 properties, and wealthy estates were developed, but pretty much that was it. And eventually, they, because of, I assume, money, by 1925, they were auctioning the properties off. And I am assuming the Johnsons bought the property about that time. But I could not find an article that said that. I even went in to the family search, and I went into the deeds, both with the Mecox Land Improvement Company and with Norma Johnson, Norma Thompson, and could not, but they end in 1926. So they could have bought it in 1925, and it wasn't recorded to 1927 or 28. But I saw some of the other families, or the people who purchased them. But I would say they purchased it about of course it was built by, that's the year built, for 1925, but from the Mecox Land Improvement Company. The Johnson family, Richard Oscar Johnson, I found, Find a Grave had all of his relatives, but he was married twice to Annetha Coiler, and they had a son, Richard Benedict. Ethel passed away in 1918, and this son in 1924. So his second marriage was to Norma Gray Thompson Johnson in 1924, and I'm assuming that's where a lot of the family money came from. She was born in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and her family were descendants from the passengers on the Mayflower. Her grandfather was a dentist. This is Find a Grave. Grandfather was a dentist. Her father was a dentist, and she even went to dental school, which would be rather, I think, an unusual thing for a woman at that time. I'm assuming she may have helped her father, of course, with his practice. But she didn't marry until 1924, which would have been late for that age. I mean, for that time period. But they had 2 children, Jean O'Shea, and then she later married a Gatehouse. And she was 10 when her mother died, and Robert Oliver Johnson was the son.
But the sad thing was, is after, well, I considered it sad, that, I mean, Richard died shortly after was born. He died in 1931, and he left a sizable estate for that time. I think the estate was valued at, the net value was $38,334.42. And by 1939, when Norma passed away in her will, her estate was $206,274 and change. So based on that, I'm thinking the money, her estate was larger than her husband's, so the money had come from that family. But they did have the means to build the house and to also engage renowned architects. The interesting thing about Frank Goodwillie is he also built a house personally for himself in Montclair, New Jersey, around 1929, and it resembles the subject house, but a smaller version. It's a red Georgian brick house. It is at, I think it was 17 Wayside Place in Montclair, New Jersey. I had the nomination form, but I also included the photo that was available online with information about it on page 14, on the last page, along with a picture of the memorial that we all, that top page, that is, and they said it was the last project that Goodwillie completed before his death in I think it was around 1929, according to his obituary. But it's interesting to see the similarities between it, and it is on the National Register. So locally, I mean, a number of his projects in New Jersey, and they listed the addresses, are very prominent, well-known, and his own home, is been deemed a landmark. So I'm all that is leading to that article. So if you go to the article on page 6, you can see I excerpted several of the photographs actually from the 1932 article, and they are similar to identical to the photographs in what, we didn't observe on the far right, the water side on Mecox Bay, but that's similar to the one in the picture. But the article, and there's except for the colors and the wallpaper, but the wood features and how it was set up is all described there. But after they both died, and that was Richard in 31 and Norma in 39, she specifically left the property to her children, and who were 12 and 10 at the time. But the children went to live with her sister, who had no children, but was married to a Sidney Edmonds. It was Madeline Thompson Edmonds, and she married Sidney. And the children went to Northampton, Massachusetts, to live with them. I'm assuming they came back to visit, but that property is in the discards maintained in that family until 1955, when Robert Oliver, the son's name, appears, and he sold, he seemed to have subdivided the property because there were 16 acres. It included 191 to the left of the, walking up the driveway, clear down to the right to Cove Avenue. There's actually a Georgian lane that some of the properties are accessed off of. But he subdivided that, but then he sold the main lot, the family, the lot with the family house, to Alfred Padula. He was a local developer who developed Rosewood Court, the Holly Lane area. I didn't include all the articles about him. He owned houses that he rented for the summer and was always buying and selling land in East Hampton, I assume Bridgehampton, and throughout the area. But he used that as his family home from 1961 until 1970. But he also subdivided a few parcels off himself. And by 1970, the property was sold to Alan J. Robbins, who was born in 1929, and his family. And that's from the discards. And I was still researching the Robbins family, and I received today some more information about them that I can include. But they are a notable family from New York City, art world, and obviously had the means. I assume they usually use this. I see no local articles about them. There is nothing I could find when you go through the Suffolk County newspapers. Nothing in the census for those names, even at Family Search. But they owned, and it was in their family until it was sold to, recently in 2025 to the current owner. But these are some of the pictures. I just included some of the ones I took, and they actually pale in comparison to the ones that were available online. But there are a lot of the carvings. If you go back up to the other one, we were trying to figure out, okay, the bottom right, there's a carving with initials above the fireplace. Okay, that's the gallery, the fireplace in the living room. But I would go, there could be a J, and an R. But we were they appeared to be initials overlaid. But not, you could sort of interpret them different ways. But just the detail in the wood is just amazing. And if you go to the next one, this would, on the left was the billiard room. Of course, they don't have the same wallpaper as mentioned, but on the right was a kitchenette that was to use for entertaining. Below is the dining room, which is more on the left side, and a couple photos from upstairs. But so much of it is intact, except for a little bit of water damage. And at the end, I included, which you could see in the photos I included the other historic resources in the area. I believe, the main house would be eligible for consideration as a town designated landmark based on the town code, and because of the special character. I think it's the very last, it's page 9. I just bolded the ones. It only needs to meet one, but it would meet one or more. It was part of, that development area when the estates were being built in Watermill, also because of the distinguishing characteristics in architectural style, and also because of the designers, Goodwillie and Moran. And then you can see it from the road, but you need to be looking for it. But it's very visible from Mecox Bay. So it is in a unique location and visible. But what can I say? I fell in love with the house, and I know it's not my house, but with the beautiful details. If that house could be, because of the size of the acreage, preserved in any way, and that would be, and I realized that there would, any house that's 100 years old on the bay, close to the ocean, and survived the 1938 hurricane would have some issues, I believe. The ones that I saw mostly in the at the engineer's report, from the outside was that semicircular, that half porch on the south, which had been altered. That's the one area that had been altered. I don't have that picture, but had been altered from what it looked like in the 32 article. But that one's really unprotected and protrudes from the house. So even if that one was taken down and rebuilt, reconstructed, it would be as significant because it's already been altered. And the other one, pictures I saw appeared, several of them, to the garage on the north side, on the left. And I believe, I didn't tour the garage or look at it.
It wasn't safe.
The wood rot and, if that garage wasn't there, but there would still be a significant portion of a house left. David, and I didn't get a chance to inquire, would this one qualify, for the carriage house amendments because of the size of the property?
It's too large.
I don't mean to put you on the
Yeah, no,
spot.
that's all right. It's too large to be a carriage house. It exceeds the,
What's that?
it's too large itself to be a carriage house. So the new house would have to become the carriage house, and it would have to be much smaller. So it's,
It's too large to be a carriage house,
yeah,
even with the garage gone and,
yeah, oh, yeah.
okay. What if they built a really large house? It's 5.4, well, I won't ask you to debate
Yeah,
that.
no.
So that, you don't
It
think
doesn't
that's
lend
a-
itself to a carriage house.
Okay,
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that large of a house when you're in it because it's linear and it's narrow.
yeah,
And that other garage, the garage that was added, that garage that's currently on, it looks like it dates from the 50s sometime.
yeah.
And it was junk. And the other piece of property we're talking about next door appears to be the original garages, and it's a separate.
Yeah.
And the alley of trees are almost as important as the house itself.
Yes, and I was gonna mention that, the trees are just,
And it's an interesting study in a 1925 structure in that they used a lot of really good materials, and then they used a lot of cheap ones. And,
particularly in the servants,
oh, yeah.
the servants' wing, which was off to upstairs to the left, and the nurseries and the nurses'
It
bed.
had nice ironwork outside. The cast ironwork was good. They decided to use hot rolled steel for a lot of the decoration instead of using wrought iron. And that didn't hold up well at all. But the house is, that a lot of, instead of doing cast plaster or carved woodwork around the fireplace, a really decorative one, then the one that's got the foliated detail run around you were talking about with the coat of arms. Those were all Campo, and which was prefabricated stuff you could buy, and it's very nicely detailed. Once it's painted, it's, unless you tap it or something, you can't tell it's not wood. And the fireplace around that one fireplace is particularly spectacular. Then the one that's got that foliated business going around the top is also very nice. Got two entrances, the front and the rear, that looked to have been separate constructions that were made at a millworks and brought out, and they're quite decorative. All this stuff, if the house is gonna be knocked down, I don't know who would take such a thing, but, such pieces, but there are parts of the house that are, we're preserving the brickworks in amazing condition, but, house is fixable. It's not, that there was a reason to, someone wanted to fix it. It's, the fact that it's set off into one corner of that larger area, so it,
Do you know if they ever considered keeping that and adding on to it, even if it's using the original structure?
Well, I think from the engineer's report, the original structure between the foundation and all of the areas where the brick wall is pulling away from the building, including the cable system in the attic that is trying to hold this house together, it would be very hard to add an addition to that without having to take a majority of it down. And again, where would you add the addition if each of the various facades are pulling away from the house, literally. I have on Zoom one of the architects who can discuss the engineering report, but based on, my reading of the engineering report with respect to the roof, the walls themselves, and the condition of the foundation, it would be very hard to repurpose this house. And as you were all stating, it's a very narrow house. It's not really well suited for modern living. We have a letter of non-jurisdiction from the Conservation Board with respect to the demolition, so it's far enough set from the wetlands, but because of the nature of this home, you can't really go further. The environmental constraints, again, for construction, or even the idea if it was eligible for carriage house. So I think that the engineering report supports that this house is not necessarily salvageable. One of the things that's important to note is that there is, the intent is to keep the alley of trees, which I really do think frames the property and whatever else will go there. As discussed at the site visit, we are amenable if there is a historic society out here that would like to salvage any of the interior. One of the things that I noted from reading the 1932 architectural record article is the emphasis they really put on the ironwork that was done. And as you can see, this particular porch no longer has its iron columns, any of its decorative elements that were along the edge.
That's the one that comes off the south.
And in fact, the entire lower half of the facade has this wood paneling, but if you look at the 1932 architectural record book, it was actually a brick facade all the way through. This particular chimney, the roof over the porch is incredibly rusted, but one of the things that I think all of us saw when we were upstairs is the intrusion of water and the crumbling of the chimney on the interior, which is significant when you start to get interior brick to crumble. So, if you would like to hear from the architect, he is on the Zoom and can be let in. And he can speak more to the engineering report as to why we just don't feel like this house is salvageable, especially considering where could you possibly put the addition, when the bones themselves, the framework and the foundation, have serious structural integrity issues.
What's
Did
the
you
name of the
want to let in the
architect?
architect?
Yeah, shall we bring the architect in?
Sure, is he in?
Peter, is there somebody there we can let in?
What was this? What's their name?
Last name is Liu. Ying Liu.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Ying Liu. I'm one of the associate principals at Peter Ponoyer Architects, and we're the architect for the client. So I have met some of you on Friday, and we walked through the site, and I can speak a little bit more about the structural aspect of the house. So as you can see in the report, our biggest concern is the roof, like what Martha was saying. I don't think any of you went up to the attic, but in the report, towards the later end of the engineering report, you can see there are photos of these tie rods that's literally connecting the roof, keeping the roof together. So like the whole building is trying to pull away, and there's a series of tie rods that's holding it together. So that's a really big concern for us. So that is it's not stable. You don't see that every day, and that's the big thing. And then the foundation, I believe, as Mariska noted, there's some serious foundation issues. So we don't believe that it's a viable option to save the house, and we don't really have a choice but to tear it down to build a new one. And as what Susan was saying about the possibly adding additions, we are limited by the site where there is the setback requirement for the type X zone. So we're kind of right to the edge of it. So there's really not too much opportunity for us to expand. And also there's a limit of, I forget the exact number of square footage proposed. So even if we're trying to expand, we have a maximum square footage that we have to keep under. So we're kind of almost at the capacity at this point. So, oh, so if you look at the pictures, there
I'm
might be a
trying to
few.
get. Site plan.
Yeah, so there's these setback lines that we kind of have to respect.
And
So, and then
also
that's the,
flood hazard area requirements too.
yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why it was located there, because we're trying to, it has to be still far away from the water and the wetland area.
You can see where they cut off that one on the left.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Does anybody have any further questions for architect? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So to sum it up again, the analysis that has been done based on the the engineering report is that, this house is now too far gone to be salvageable to be reused or repurposed, rehabbed. And again, we do plan to keep the LA because it is a distinguishing feature of the property and I think honors its history by putting a new residence there, but maintaining that same grand, magnificent LA view from the street, which I think is what you see first from the streetscape. Again, the house is pretty hard to see. You have to really peer through and stop to see it, but the LA is noticeable. And we think it's appropriate for, it's always a shame to lose a piece of history, but in this case, we think it's appropriate for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition.
Is there any plan to retain any of the interesting historic materials in this structure, in the new structure?
Well, I think the most interesting historic materials, at least from an exterior standpoint, are the metal finishings, but those are so deteriorated from a rust perspective that many of them are not salvageable. I mean, they have a couple elements that are good, but at this point, there is no intent to retain any of the interior elements, which is why we've offered them to any historic society that would want to salvage them.
Yeah, we took a look at the bar sink. In the, off the billiard room, there's a small kitchen, has a metal sink. We thought that would be worth salvaging, and there was some lights across the top of a library bookcase at what I would call the north end of the house.
Sure.
But, and then if,
And I remember there was also the talk of the hardware on the second floor, the very sort of Art Deco-y hardware on some of the closet doors.
the doors have some nice hardware. The doors are nice, but there's no market for those. I mean, you don't live long enough to find somebody to take those. They're very nice doors. They're I think 2 1/4 inches thick. They're quite heavy and nice hinges and nice, the latches are very nice, but, it's hardly worth someone's time to go in there and take all those kind of things loose because there's typically not a ready market for those sorts of things. What's really a shame is that large mantle with that foliated detail around it is particularly nice, but and then that what we talked about, the swag going over the fireplace at the where's that far south end of the house.
In the living room.
Yeah, I thought I might take a look at that, see how hard it would be to save that, but for what purpose, I don't know. It's in perfect condition for that decoration, there's only one place that a piece is missing from it. And whether or not we could remove that, typically when I save stuff, it goes into the West Hampton Beach Historical Society, and then when people have needs for things like hardware and stuff, we make it available for nothing, for free. So, and it's a shame there's not a way to peel off those the front and rear entrance to that
Yeah.
property, to the house, because those are particularly heavily painted, but particularly decorative. And they'd come off as a unit, but that's about all we saw.
Yeah.
Couple of nice little pear trees flanking the front entrance, but I don't think they're worth digging up.
They look like they haven't gotten enough sunlight in a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think they've been shaded out a little bit, but they are.
So that's showing the tie rods there, right? We climbed up that ladder, didn't go up in the attic.
Do you know if they're planning to preserve the trees on the entryway going in?
Yes. That was one of the things, is that we're preserving the LA of trees.
Any other comments from the board? So we need to provide a response. I think, Susan, you had noted perhaps that you were going to recommend objecting to this demolition.
I personally have to, I realize the board, I just go a consensus, but I can't agree, but even though the majority might do that, I understand that.
How does the rest of the board feel about that particular response, objecting to the demolition?
Because even if we object, you can still do it. So, I mean,
Correct.
our objection doesn't, my objection, we all object or don't object, we're advisory.
Microphone.
Since it's not landmark. Excuse me. We are, if I object, or if the whole group objects or doesn't object, we're advisory, and you can proceed along because it's not a landmark property. And so we don't have, it's just an advisory thing, so.
Well, it is a recognized historic resource. It was designed by notable architects, and it has some very interesting, historic features about it. Not particularly visible from the street, as I understand. I have not been there myself.
I have a question, though. I did not see it listed on the 2004 updated inventory, and I note that on the agenda, it says it's been assigned to WM, dash 62, and it says pending.
Okay, the pending was our hearing the application tonight was pending because we had not yet received, when this agenda was put together, the owner's endorsement.
Okay.
We needed the owner's endorsement, but we now have that, so it's no longer pending. It's being heard tonight.
That's fine. I looked at the 2014 inventory, and I didn't see it on there. All right, that's fine.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, we have a report that Susan put together, and it's there.
All right.
So,
I just wanted to say that, I understand Susan's concerns. I mean, it is an absolutely, Martha, we've talked about this, an absolutely beautiful, beautiful home. That being said, with absolute neglect over the last, 8 or 9 years or something, where nobody's
Not
lived in
longer.
the
I
house.
mean, I think
it's
some of the
just
things
that
we saw
know
are
of.
chronic.
The house has suffered terribly to the point where, if it's that much, so much deterioration that it cannot be structurally resolved, that leaves, it's just a sad thing to see it go.
I agree.
And I was thinking, I don't know, it's like an analogy, but it's like in the Goldilocks kind of thing. If the property has been beautifully restored and altered, it's going to look wonderful, but there are going to be no historic features left. So we're going to say, well, why would we landmark? It's been so altered, it doesn't even look. And then we have one that has so many of the original features as proof. I mean, you can compare them from 1932, but then it still is not going to be recommended to be a landmark because of, different structural issues. So it's so rare to find one that's right in between the Goldilocks. Anyways, it is disheartening to me, but I understand that the facts, if things have to be done, but I need to say that.
I mean, one thing I will comment on with respect to these, the cables in the attic, I have a barn that needed cabling up like this 30 some odd years ago. And it was done by a house mover, and the barn is sitting there happy as a clam, and it's not going anywhere. So, while this is indicative of something that needed correction, it doesn't mean to me, not as an architect and not as an engineer here, but it doesn't mean to me that this, is a condition that is irretrievable. So, but neglect over many years does take a toll on a building, and there's certainly been a fair amount of that here.
Yeah, and with, that, and I guess I wanted to comment, because so often we would accept this as a brick house, donating it if anybody wanted it, but that is not even practically feasible. With a brick house, there's no way, of course, for that house to even be moved, and it's really sad to see it, get chopped up in little pieces for salvage, but.
Well, certainly salvage is something that I think we should recommend here for, whether it's historical societies or whether it's, construction folks that are going to take the materials and put them back into productive use. I think that would be, a beneficial result here from this. I think bottom line is we need to write a response here to this. I think salvage seems to be something that is a good thing here. And I guess the question is, do we object to this demolition, or do we not object to the demolition? I mean, I think from my perspective, I would object to the demolition knowing that it's probably going to happen anyway. Object to it and recommend salvaging if demolition goes forward. Any other thoughts from the board on this?
I don't know, there's no way to, it doesn't seem like to save the building with the structural issues. There, for a certain amount of money, all this stuff could be redone, repaired, bolstered, the foundation could be repaired, all that cabling and stuff could be dealt with, but it's way in excess of what you should have to do to retain an old building. It's a beautiful house. And I'm sorry that doesn't still have the garage that's on the adjacent lot. It would make it even more attractive, that and the alley. But at least the line of trees could be preserved. And there's some rot in some of those trees, but at least a part of that landscape could be preserved. But, so I don't know what else you'd do with it.
I have a question about if we object procedurally, if we're an advisory board, procedurally, how does that affect them getting a demo permit?
It doesn't affect it at all.
There's no.
It's not landmarked. We have no control over this. It's registering this board's objection to the loss of a historic structure. That's all it is. So, if it's not landmarked or in a district. Given that understanding, is there any other suggestions for a response? I don't think, at least in my mind, that this particular house rises to the level where we would want to landmark it without owner consent, given its condition, given that it's not highly visible from the street, given that it's only a 100-year history here. So I think if it were to be landmarked, it would be because the owner landmarks it. Bill?
I think sometimes in the past, we've objected to the demolition by neglect, but conceded that the house was beyond rescuing.
Okay, yep, that's it, and that's a very good point. And we see, unfortunately, Bill and I saw this, this last month, we'll see in a few minutes, 2 houses that are essentially demolition by neglect and vacancy, et cetera. It is really unfortunate, especially with the housing situation that we have here in this town, that these houses aren't occupied and maintained. So, yes, I think that's worth mentioning in our response.
So I think this one, and I'm not sure if anyone has stayed there in the last 10 years, but I'm pretty sure the real estate ads go back at least 10 years. I'd double check the date on that, but it's been on the market for a while, so we had assumed during that period that it was not.
And the current owner is a very recent,
What's that?
the current owner is a very recent purchaser, so I just wanted to be clear on the record that the current owner did not neglect this building. It was purchased in this state.
So, I mean, when you say neglect, there's nobody there, of course, it's not as well maintained.
Yeah, I think we understand that it's not the current owner.
Just wanted to be clear.
Yes. All right, any other comments on this particular application? I think, Susan, could you do the response, taking into consideration the...
About what Emma is going to be object or not, I mean, if there's a...
Microphone.
Microphone, Susan, sorry.
See, I'm not sure if there's a consensus. But, I mean, I can write it for the object and, make the recommendations fully knowing that it's an advisory. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be reasonable to object to the loss of a historic structure, but we recognize that the loss is affected by a period of neglect, et cetera.
And that, I
recommend salvage.
Yeah, I recommend salvage, for sure.
So under that pathway for your board, would that still result in the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition? No.
Okay, certificate of appropriateness doesn't apply here. A
Okay.
certificate of appropriateness is only issued if
For
you
new
are a
construction.
landmark structure or if you are in a historic district. So what's been submitted here is a demolition application. So it is a response to a demolition application.
All right. Other jurisdictions still issue a COA for demolition, so just wanted to.
Yeah, COA in our jurisdiction only applies to landmark structures or structures in historic districts.
I don't normally come before you guys for demo.
There you
I
go.
am, as I mentioned, I interned at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and I'm the vice president of my historical society, so I feel it strongly when I come here to advocate for a demolition, but in this case, I think the structure is not salvageable in the sense for what the intended use will be for a new single-family residence.
Yeah. Okay, are
Okay.
you okay with that, Susan?
what I'll do is I'll write it, I'll let you look, I'll have you take a look at it before
I'll
I
just make
submit it.
sure that nothing.
So I need to update that report with the Robbins information, so I'm sure it won't be until after the holiday, but I'll run it by you before it.
Sure. So it sounds like we can expect to get a response back by sometime next week. Would that be
That's,
reasonable?
yeah.
Okay.
And then will the board be taking a vote tonight or at the following meeting once you have Susan's?
It's not going to be the following, it's tonight.
All right.
It's tonight. Which brings me to the issue of a vote. So we need to have approval of writing the response that we discussed of objecting, but understanding that there's been neglect and that the house is in poor condition, and recommending salvaging of elements of the house as feasible.
And mature trees, which they're going to,
Yeah, the alley of trees on the entrance is going to be maintained.
Yeah.
So can I have a motion to approve that particular response? Vicky, second?
Second.
Susan? Okay, all in favor?
um,
Aye. Any opposed? None. Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Now we go back to the beginning of our agenda, which is 29 West End Avenue in East Quogue. Bill, should I show part 1 or part 2 of the report?
So part 1 is the maps and the history of it, and then jump to part 2, I guess, next. That's basically the photos of the current conditions.
House. Okay, this is on the, this is West End Avenue, this is Montauk Highway labeled here, and the house is located right here. It fronts on a little creek here. This is just a photo, a postcard showing the intersection of Montauk Highway and West End Avenue back in the early 1900s. And that photograph would be looking at this area right here, which of course is now different than what's shown in the photograph. We go back to the 1873 historic map, and there we are at D. Benjamin at the 29 West End Avenue location. And then by 1902, we have W.D. Benjamin living here. And in 1916, it's still W.D. Benjamin.
Right, and at that time, it was West Side Avenue,
Yes.
although it was changed to West End.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, the West Side Avenue goes north from Montauk Highway. West End Avenue goes south. Very confusing. So here is a 1930 aerial photo. This was actually a duck farm. It was a duck farm at one time, and they apparently raised eggs that were then used to hatch ducks for the duck farming operations that occurred in the Mauritius and in Eastport. It was by 1930. It was had left the Benjamin family and was now operated by the Terry family as the McCormick Duck Farm. And here's the 1938 aerial photo. You can see the duck buildings in here. You can see the current dwelling. And then there is a barn back here that still exists, for which nothing is proposed at this time. Bill and I got a look inside the barn, and you can actually see these metal lined sinks, which I think I talked to David about. I think the duck eggs were probably washed in these metal lined sinks. At any rate, there's nothing proposed for that. It is proposed to demolish the dwelling, and the current owner wants to build a rather large new dwelling on the property. It is identified in East Quogue Hamlet Heritage Area Report as the W.D. Benjamin House. It was dated at this time as going back to 1890 to 1873, but I think we took it back to 1851. We have the age. And it still looks remarkably similar to what's shown here. A little sun porch on the side, little porch upstairs. You can see the original volume. I think, Bill, we decided that these things on the side were perhaps additions.
Right, as we went in the front door, there was a window, which was an exterior window to your left as you went up the stairs. And at some point, they built that addition, and that became an interior window. So that little section of it was added on. And then on the right-hand side, it looks like they added a covered porch at some point. Then they enclosed the covered porch, and somewhere in there, they added the little porch on the second floor as well.
So this house has been modified several times.
Yeah, but most of the windows in the house are a 3/1 light cut, and they do match the ones in the porch. So the porch had to be enclosed fairly early on that they were able to get the same windows. But as you look up into that second floor area, there's a hole you could just climb through in that second floor roof deck area.
Yeah.
The soffit has collapsed and a lot of the roofing above it has fallen in. Inside the house, we saw a lot of damage from water coming in above and ruining the plaster. There was some sort of strange green mold growing on some of it. Oddly, the little peaked windows in the gables are 2/2, where the rest of the house is 3/1. That looks like a 6, but that's actually the storm, like the triple track storm.
That's
That
a
gives you the
1,
horizontal.
2,
It's really
3.
3 verticals over 1.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, they're really, I don't ever recall seeing a 3/1 window before.
No,
And these were, these were throughout the house.
yeah.
You see this odd porch. It's kind of hard to see, but the roof is caved in.
Keep going, you'll see it. There you
There we
go. So,
You can see
like
even the
the
porch.
4x8 sheet of plywood that was used as the soffit up there, half of that has collapsed, and then you can see right through the roof above it. Yeah, there you go.
And underneath some of these soffits, you had modern materials. I think these are metal, perforated metal, but under some of the other soffits, you had original, looked like original wood.
Right. This is an interesting little side porch coming, or stoop coming off that side porch. And there are 5 different materials being used to make that. Different sizes and shapes and colors. Some are just normal bricks. Then there's some weird 8x8 blocks. And then there's sort of pavers for the step. Yeah, it's very odd. Yep, this is one part of the brick foundation. It does have mostly a brick foundation around it. Some of it seems to be serviceable, some of it like this, the mortar has come out, the bricks are starting to move out of place. Here the bricks look fine, this section of the house. Here the chimney looks okay, but the little section of bricks in the foundation next to it, again, you can see where a lot of the mortar is missing. Yeah, here, I'm not sure what's behind the stucco to the left, meeting the foundation with the brick to the right. There's a soldier course on the top of that, sort of 3 courses of brick on the foundation. And that we felt was a porch that was at some point enclosed on the side of the house. Yeah, here you can see some of the stucco has come off. You can see the cement blocks beneath it.
I think this was the rear addition, if I
Yes.
recall.
Yeah, right, and that's where it sort of has a 2-foot cantilevered section, and expanded the house beyond the foundation. Yeah, here you can see on the rear of the house, it's actually 2 different 1-story additions coming out. This is interesting. There was at least a dozen or more shingles that you could see up in that upper area that were 12 to 14 inches wide.
Bill, can I say, only you can find the 2 shingles.
No,
I'm so impressed. I want to tell you, I am.
There were quite a few of them, and it's just surprising how wide they were. When you open a bundle now, there's so many that are 4 inches wide. It's just amazing. Yeah, so this is part of the addition. As you come in the back of the house, you came in at a point somewhere between the first floor and the basement. So you had a stair immediately went up, and then the stairs went down to the basement. Yeah, there were a number of interesting little features inside, built-in shelves, built-in seating and a banquette. An unusual sort of brick and, river rock
Yep.
fireplace, although this is in a corner of the enclosed porch on the side of the house. So it wasn't original to the inside of the house. When they enclosed the porch, they added this fireplace. Yep, there you can see the window next to the stairs. That's looking into another room. When you look at the other side of it, you could tell that it was an exterior window. Now it's been turned into an interior window. Cast iron radiators throughout the house. You can see some of the mold in the ceiling collapsing on the floor.
This was on the second, I think that was the second floor.
Yeah. The kitchen was definitely updated at some point with an inexpensive plywood door cabinet. A lot of the plumbing fixtures in the house were original to when plumbing would have come along. This is a door that was added on the second floor to that porch, and you can still see through the roof in that center upper pane. That's the one where the roof has collapsed above the second floor porch.
Yeah, and you can see the water intrusion on the interior of the structure here.
Yeah, again, the green mold on the floor. A lot of nice flat recessed panels in the doors. All of the hardware, the handles were missing. We were figuring they were probably nice glass doorknobs or something, and somebody went in, took them out.
Roll out.
They left the mortise locks and such. Again, same windows on the second floor, 3/1. They did have rope sash cords. Some seemed to still have the ropes, some did not. This is on the porch. Again, the windows matched the other windows in the house. And there's so many in the porch that they couldn't have come from some other room in the house. Again, the interior window from the interior side. And then the window from the exterior side. And you can see here the tongue and groove board ceiling that would have been on a porch on that side of the house. Damage to the ceilings. This is quite prominent. Here we have some more damage with some black mold. More damage to the ceiling and down the walls. Here's when we start to get into the green mold.
Well, this is a house that's...
So again, there's been a lot of neglect to the house. Damage like this was throughout the second floor, and then some on the porch. Yeah, more. This was in the corner of the porch, underneath where that second floor deck is. So I guess after the roof collapsed, it continued to work its way down to the first floor. There were a couple of nice original lighting fixtures in the house. Nothing very elaborate, simple. Most of the foundation was brick. There were a lot of brick piers in there, some asbestos-covered piping, dirt floors in the crawl space. This is just a little section of the typical curved circular basements that we see. But obviously to the right and to the left, at some point when the house was added onto or modified, they came in with cement blocks and added on to it. But there was just enough of it there that we could see the original curved cellar. A lot of the framing down there was sort of hodgepodge, things all coming together. Didn't really make a lot of sense. A lot of the piping had been cut out of the house. I think at some point the brick wasn't doing well in the basement. We did see sand at the bottom of the wall that seemed to have been coming, that water had pushed the sand through the joints. Or is
Yes, that was the other house.
that, is that the other house?
other house.
I knew I was going to
Yeah.
do that. Okay, so I think that these bricks started to become damaged, so they stuccoed over them to try and lock the water out maybe, and the stucco came off. This is just a little Dutch wall where they went from a crawl space to the basement. Yeah, again, this is an area that, as they added the basement to this section, the brick in the lower section of the wall was very sort of haphazard to the brick of the original foundation up above it. So they sort of underpinned the wall by coming in later with some brick and added to the size of the basement. Yeah, just more of the stucco coming off the bricks. Yeah, the wires were all over the place, the plumbing was all over the place. This is the barn. We included the barn because it wasn't in really good condition, and we had a feeling that at some point we're gonna see this one again. The taller section is the original part. To the left is the room that Stephanie had talked about with the 3-bay sink in it where the eggs were washed and perhaps refrigerated. The outside of it, where some of the siding is falling off, it was actually covered in sheet metal on the outside as well. To the right, you're just seeing the beginning of an addition that was put on to the right-hand side of it. Yeah, that section, which is wood on this side, but masonry on the back side. Covered with vines at this end. There was a porch, or not a porch, I guess a service dock
Yeah.
added at some point. It also appeared that they elevated the floor on the inside of that section of the barn at the same time. And we thought perhaps to drive a truck up to it, they elevated this so you could just truck the eggs right into it. Yeah, here you can see the back side of that sort of addition, which is all masonry, where the other side was all wood. We didn't get into this a lot because, one, it wasn't in the application, and the other, the owner was sort of hesitant to let us into this building. Here you can see some of the siding coming off, the brick piers underneath,
This thing.
a little bit closer to it. Yeah, so here you can see, and even the next picture, where the siding has come off, and the area with that sink in it, this is all clad in metal. Although this may just be the back of the sink.
I think it is the back of the sink.
Okay.
Yeah. And this barn is just not in great shape.
Yeah. Now, they're on the water, so to keep this footprint is probably important, because if they took it down, they wouldn't be able to build in this location again. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there
But
was a
the
loft.
barn is not at all part of this application.
No, no. But just in case something happened to it or it continued to get worse, we documented it as what we could see while we were there. Yep. A lot of posts underneath, could be locusts, could be local cedar posts. Again, the framing is sort of haphazard. As they did things, they just modified what they needed to. Yep, just keep adding posts so it doesn't fall down. Yeah, this is where the floor, you can see the floor at the lower section of the picture was the original floor in the barn, and then at some point they elevated it to the upper part so that they could walk out onto that platform on the outside. We were looking for other foundations. I didn't feel that this was an old foundation. It seemed to be mostly made out of pavers and cement blocks. And there's also, from 2023, they have an elevated dock out to a dock.
Yeah. So it's proposed as demolition of the house and replacement by another larger.
Larger house, yeah.
Very large property. It's got the property with the house on it, but there's also a whole section to the south that's just open.
Right.
And I didn't see any reason to object to this demolition, given the condition of the house.
Right, yep, neither did I.
Anybody have any other comments on this? Okay. So can we have a motion to approve recommending, or not objecting to the proposed demolition? Okay, Tim, second? Larry, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Bill, could you do that response?
Yes.
All right, 67 Baycrest Avenue, in West Hampton. This is the one where the sand is coming through the foundation. Okay, this is a property that is in the Culvertown area of West Hampton, which we have visited several times before. This is South Road up here. This is Baycrest Avenue extending south from South Road. And the location of the house in question is right here. So we have the usual, there's no house in 1873. You can see where Baycrest Avenue is, but there's nothing there yet. In 1902, the subject property was part of a larger property that was jointly owned by three Culvers. These three Culvers, John, Herbert, and Eckford, seem to own a lot of properties in this area with houses on them. This one here, and there's this one here. Eckford owns this, Herbert owns that. So a lot of the area is being jointly or severally owned by the three Culver folks. But there is no house yet on the property that will become our subject property. So this is the 1902 map. And then here's the 1916 map. The property that was formerly owned by the three Culvers now has a little piece chopped off of it. And this little house is here, owned by D.W. Gordon. And I could not find anything of any interest at all concerning Mr. Gordon. This is a picture of the house in 2023, a GIS photo, classic sort of four-square door front and center, but you can see it looks like the windows were probably previously replaced. This has all changed. This is when the house was probably lived in. The house has not been lived in for quite some time. There's a little garage building in the back. It may have originally been a stable, but it's essentially a one-car garage. And here's the house. So here's what the house looks like now.
No front door.
No front door. It's all
Took it out and
removed
shingled it
and
up.
shingled up. Who knows
Right.
why that happened?
So this is not in the AKRF or the historical profiles of Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton.
Correct. Yep. And all the trees were chopped down probably a year or two ago. You can see the stumps out here in the yard, so they've already begun clearing.
It appeared that the tree went through the skylight in the addition on the back of the house.
Yes, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Tank. Look,
Yeah. So the back one-story section is a later addition.
right, and you can see there's a tree stump up here on the roof, or stump or log. We couldn't figure out why the log was sitting on the roof.
I
until we
figured it
went
out.
inside.
It was holding down the plywood to cover the broken hole in the roof.
Yes.
But we did see the skylight, the glass all over the floor and the screen and everything inside and a bunch of branches.
So this is now the only entry door into this house, I believe, is this one right here, in the back, on top of this wood deck.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Right, so the addition you see with the casement windows off to the left and the door, then there's about 3 feet or 4 feet of addition just before the house in the back, which also then occurred around the side and became the porch.
Yeah,
So
this here.
there's been a lot of tinkering to this corner of the house.
Yeah. We have the sliders, those are obviously non-original.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether the bay window was original or not.
Yeah.
But again, right, all the windows are inexpensive vinyl windows, no divided lights, an updated kitchen. The access to the basement was through a hatch in the floor.
It was a lovely basement.
A very simple stair. A lot of the first floor had been paneled at some point, and then they, at some point, decided, I guess they didn't like the wood of the paneling or something, and it was all painted.
This is where the front door used to be.
Yes. Bathrooms had also been updated, and there's the vinyl window, just an extruded vinyl window. A lot of the interior doors are just hollow core masonite doors.
Yeah, and when they put the bathroom one upstairs, they stole from the adjoining rooms to make room for the bathroom, which made at least the front bedroom was.
Yeah, one of the few remaining original doors, that's the door to the attic stairs. That's the attic stairs. I had a feeling that this cabinet came from somewhere else. It wasn't really built in, but it looked like maybe it was originally built in somewhere, but not here. It seems to sit too close to the floor and doesn't really meet the ceiling or follow the wall, but was an early cabinet from somewhere. Again, more of the hollow core doors. There's the skylight. So I think the log is there just to hold the plywood down so that it doesn't blow away. There's the screen and the broken glass.
And the
Sitting
remains
on
of
the
the
floor
tree
where it
before they put
landed.
the plywood up there.
Interesting that part of the ceiling had come down and revealed a tongue and groove wood ceiling underneath it. So wasn't quite sure why that was up in there.
Where was that ceiling?
Corner of the kitchen?
Okay, yeah. Well, where that porch thing was built out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So perhaps there was an indented porch at some point. Up in the attic, you could see the lath. Everything had been, the wood shingles had been removed, plywooded over, and asphalt shingles added to it. A lot of blown-in insulation. There were two single-window dormers, one on the left, one on the right, and a double-window dormer on the front of the house, no dormer on the rear of the house.
There's the front double dormer.
Yep.
And the chimney.
Wow, I've seen corbelling, but that takes the cake. It is so far off. It is sitting on several joists that they added underneath it, I think, to hold it up while the mortar dried, but that's extreme.
Yeah. I've never seen one that
Yeah,
crazy.
it's practically a staircase. Yeah, looking down the stairs from the attic into the floor framing.
And here's some original plaster.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of mechanical equipment has been added up in the attic. A lot of newer equipment in the cellar. Again, a circular cellar. Yeah. This area, I'm not sure why, there was a lot of bricks sort of strewn up in there as if something had been taken apart at some point and they just left the debris in there. I wasn't sure why. The post may have been replaced at some point with these painted square posts. Seemed kind of odd. Again, a lot, you can see where a lot of moisture has come in through the brick foundation. A lot of moisture on the floor. Here's the sand, okay. Yeah, and as you looked at the wall, you could see where the sand had sort of been traveling down the wall and dried to it. So it was all moisture pushing the sand through the wall and then just piling up on the floor. Yeah, again, the curved brick wall, fairly rudimentary staircase, wires, plumbing, all sorts of things all over the place, very random. Yeah, framing, an additional column had been added for some reason under some of the parts. The mechanical equipment didn't look like it was in bad condition, didn't look that old.
Except they left
There were
all the old water heaters down here.
There were 3 water heaters, 2 looked like they were in use and 1 did not. And then the boiler, the red unit there.
Yeah, I think there was another old boiler behind it.
Was there? Okay.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just didn't remove anything.
I believe it's a code violation to have 2 flues into, or 2 vent pipes into 1 flue in the chimney. Here is the fuzzy white mold growing on a lot of the ceiling in the basement.
Yes.
It was kind of a little on the
It's a
creepy
science
side.
experiment, this
I
basement.
did Google it, and it did say that it tends not to be toxic or dangerous,
Thank you.
but it does show that there's a lot of moisture in the framing, and usually it's present when there's a lot of rot in the moisture-laden framing.
Yeah.
The garage towards the rear of the property, oddly, that was the side facing the street. The garage doors face the side of the property.
Yes.
When you look at a lot of the sheathing used here, particularly on the back wall, you can see where other framing once touched those boards. I had a feeling that a lot of this was repurposed material.
Salvaged. White.
Yeah, again, some of them are painted, some of them are not, different colors. Some of them have a lot of fading on them. The roof, I'm not sure whether it had lath at some point, and they took the wood shingles and the lath off to put the plywood on, or whether the roof got so bad that the sheathing got bad and they replaced it all with plywood, but it's now plywooded and asphalt roof. So similar to the previous house, kind of demolition by neglect, and I had no real objection due to the condition of it for it to be demolished.
Right, and even if it's in the Culvertown area, the dwelling itself, we couldn't link it to a culvert. So, I don't see any reason to object to this proposal.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure there's anything at all worth salvaging in this house.
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
Any other comments or thoughts on this one? Okay. Can I have a motion to have Bill write a response of no objection? Okay, Samantha, second? Tim, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Carried. Bill. Okay, let's see if we can move this along. 5 Lincoln Avenue in Hampton Bays. This is proposed demolition of a pre-1941 dwelling and shed that look like they have been through the ringer. This is the dwelling that is proposed to be demolished right on the water. It looks like it has suffered considerably. It is not listed in either the 2014 survey, or I did take a look at the 2 Hampton Bays Heritage Area reports, and not listed there either. Obviously, it's probably originally a cottage that's been added onto multiple times and is in terrible shape at the moment. Does anybody have anything to add to this particular collection of observations. All right. Nice foundation. So can I'll be happy to write the response on this one. It would be no objection response. Anybody have anything else they want to add to that? Okay, so can I have a motion for that? Tim, second. Vicky, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed? No. All right, so I'll do that one. Okay. Next one is 10 Hollow Lane in West Hampton. This was for demolition of a barn and a greenhouse. Bill and I had looked at this property, I don't know, a year or two ago, for, this is 10 Hollow Lane in West Hampton. Oh. Oh, well, you have the other agenda. Okay, 10 Hollow Lane is on my agenda that was circulated. Yeah. Let me just bring up the application. Okay, yeah, it was submitted May 29th. And it's for demolition of a existing barn and a greenhouse. Bill and I had looked at this application for another structure on this property a couple years ago, or a year ago in the wintertime. And the barn was, what, 1930, I think, Bill, was the AYB of the barn. And the greenhouse, yeah, the barn was AYB 1930, and it was in awful shape. And the greenhouse was AYB 2004, so it wouldn't even fall under our thing. Bill and I agreed that it did not need any further review, and the response has been sent. So that matter is done. 221 Little Fresh Pond Road in North Sea. Demolish and replace a detached garage associated with a pre-1941 dwelling. Let's see, let's close this one out. And 221 Little Fresh Pond Road. Okay, the existing garage is to be removed and replaced with a new detached garage in the same location. So here is the proposed garage to replace the existing. I noticed that the existing garage looks remarkably like a former barn.
So I took a drive by this property,
Oh, good, yes.
and the garage has already been demolished. The woman was outside, and she told me that it had fallen down. So they've actually already built what they're applying for.
Fallen down.
Yeah.
Ah. I find that difficult to believe. This is what they propose to replace the former one-story garage with no living space. They propose to replace it with a two-story structure with what looks like living space upstairs. Let's see if I can find the photographs. I think that may have been the additional materials sent. Ah, yes. And I do agree that this thing was in neglected shape. But it does look remarkably like a barn with sliding doors. But clearly neglected. So there's an old board door with the ceramic knob.
Yeah, that was very odd. It looks like they put the foundation in for the new building
Yeah,
before they knocked down the existing one?
I would guess so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I didn't from these photographs, I couldn't see that this was a building that was ready to collapse. But it's gone. I didn't see anything. This is not identified in the 2014 Historic Resource Survey. What did the house look like, Samantha?
So the house looks the same, and the garage looks like what the plans are in the application.
Okay,
So,
all right, so this is a fait accompli.
yeah.
Yeah, I look at that, yeah, already there.
There was nothing there then, no debris or,
No, it's a new structure. Yeah, there's a Jeep in the garage. I took a picture of it.
Already done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they need to do the siding, but
All right, well, I guess at this point, given the situation,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't see any reason to object to this. I was just kind of curious
Yeah.
as to what the history of the property was, because this looks like it was at one time a barn, given that board door on the side with the ceramic handle and the sliding doors in the front. I was guessing that this was a barn, so, but, okay, all right.
I find that concerning. I don't know if you can make a comment in there.
Well, I think in the response, a comment should be made that the work has already been done. That certainly should be recognized. Samantha, would you mind doing the response on this? That'd be great, thank you. I mean, I don't see any reason to object to, assuming it hadn't been done already, to object to it.
But there's no repercussion to going ahead and doing demolition without a,
Well, I think, I mean, we're informing the building department essentially that it's already been done, but they see this all the time, so, yeah. I don't know what we could do. Oh, yeah, well,
They have to pay a double fee if the work's already done when they apply for it.
okay, well,
That's the repercussion.
okay. Well, let's make sure that the response notifies the building department that the work's already been done. You could even attach your photograph to it, too. That's right. Okay. Moving onward, we've covered 217 Rose Hill Road. Oh, I'm sorry. Vote. I move that we have no objection to the demolition and replacement of the detached garage, but have a note on the response that this work has already been completed before we had a chance to review it. Can we have a second for that? Vicky? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. All right, very good. All right. 54 Hayground continues on. We have not received any application yet for the work that's already been done. And Susan, did you send a note about, or it was you? It's for sale now. Ah, okay, interesting. We'll see if we get anything when somebody tries to legalize. All right, next application is 196 Big Fresh Pond Road. This is a circa 1940 dwelling. It's a renovation and a second floor addition. This is not, what is it, 196. Let's see what we have here. All right, so here's Big Fresh Pond Road, here's this house, and they propose, basically what this is a cottage, and let me see if I can get this in here, shrink this down a little bit so you can see it. This is a cottage now that looks like it's had some additions in the past. This is basically what you're looking at right now. It didn't look to me like it has any particular historic value. And And then what's proposed is to blow it up a bit. Somewhere in here we have, these are the current elevations, okay? And then several sheets down, we have proposed elevations. So the side in the back that has that weird porch on it now, here's the next story going up. Here's the next story going up on that wing coming out the side. So what you're gonna end up with is something much larger than what's there now. Yeah. I mean, I didn't see any historic resources in the immediate area. I don't see any reason to object to this particular application. Okay, I'm seeing agreement with the board here. Anybody have any other opinions on this? Okay, so I move we have no objection to the proposed renovation and addition to 196 Big Fresh Pond Road dwelling. Second, Tim, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'll go ahead and write this one. Okay, 27 Lockwood Avenue. This is to essentially legalize a finished basement. We have already agreed to pass on a full review of this. And it was Samantha and myself that looked at it. So this one is done. 851 Flanders Road in Flanders. This is for interior work only. Tim looked at it, I looked at it, we were in agreement, so we have passed on a full review. And that response has been sent. All right. We already discussed the Bridgehampton Museum. We have discussed 732 Lumber Lane. There remains, okay, I circulated a while back now, the resolution for the landmark designation of the Phillips Halstead House at 86 South Country Road in Remsenburg. Send it out to all of you. I assume you've had a chance to look at it, et cetera. So I am going to propose that we pass this resolution tonight so I can go ahead and make the recommendation to the town board and the town clerk. This is another one that's going to be dependent upon receiving an acceptable easement off of CPF, which I understand the owner is already working with CPF on that. So can I have a motion to approve the proposed resolution? Vicky, can I have a second? Tim, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, I will go ahead and get that out. All right. 75 Ponquag Avenue. We've already made the landmark recommendation. It's now pending a facade easement, so there's nothing to be done there. 116 Montauk Highway in West Hampton, we have recommended landmark designation subject to receiving an easement. This is the West Methodist Church. There's an issue about whether CPF is going to approve historic facade easements for churches and other, similar organizations. I've been playing email tag with CPF manager and with their attorney to talk to them further about this issue. And hopefully we can resolve it so that the church, and there's some other churches that are interested in going the same pathway of landmarking and getting facade easements. So that, stay tuned on that one. I hope to be able to, before our next meeting, have this meeting with them. And then 11 Walnut Avenue in East Quogue and 149 South Country Road in Remsenburg. We've recommended landmarking, again, subject to the receipt of an easement. And I understand in both cases the easements are just about done. So hopefully those will get resolved. The only other thing I had is, I wanted to make folks aware, I had a meeting with several people on June 9th. It has been recommended that we revive the Cultural Resources Subcommittee, which I don't know if any of you were on this board when we had that subcommittee active. It was basically a subgroup of Landmarks Board people who got involved in, graves protection and things like that. As part of this, they're looking to add, and we have 2 vacancies right now, they're looking to add a Landmarks Board member from the nation. And Jeremy Dennis is the person who has been recommended. I've been playing email tag with him too. I wanted to meet with him and explain, talk to him about the ins and outs of Landmarks Board, et cetera. But that is in the works to add him as a member of the Landmarks Board, and to help with cultural resources issues. So, does anybody else have anything else to add?
I know. Didn't think the burial was a subgroup. I thought they were a separate group, but they got a chunk of, they may want to set it up differently now.
Yeah, I think.
The cultural committee was well, anyways, we won't get into that. But this would be like a
It's a subcommittee, but the person, Jeremy would be added as a Landmarks Board member.
okay, because we didn't have anybody on the other one that I'm aware of.
I think we did,
We
actually.
did?
yeah.
Okay. And then my mistake. Okay, that's it.
But that was a while ago, and my memory may not be perfect, so. Anyway, that was the only other thing I wanted to bring to the table tonight. Does anybody have anything else for the Landmarks Board tonight?
Was there 149 South Country?
I discussed that with 11 Walnut Avenue. They're both on the same boat. They're waiting on easements getting finalized so we can finalize the landmarking and be done with it. Hearing nothing further, our next meeting is July 21st. And the window, we've already been receiving applications for our next meeting. I'll have to check the date and see when the window closes, but it'll be the usual date for closing the window for receiving applications. So hopefully we won't have too many more before our next meeting. Okay, so we are now at 9:42, and I'll adjourn.